Hello, welcome to another episode of Claiminator TV. My name's Scott Williams, the original Claiminator. Today we're going to talk about anchor basics and how to anchor our rope to the most safe and secure locations. We're going to talk about some options. We're going to talk about what to anchor onto and what not to anchor onto. But before we get started, do me a favor, click that like button below. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell as hard as you can. Let me know you're there. We appreciate it. And stay tuned for more Claiminator episodes. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about anchor basics. So with all the Claiminator rope and harness gear, they all come with anchor spikes for those locations where there is nothing to tie off onto. And it also comes with anchor straps and carabiners to strap onto. So the Claiminator gear, you're going to get 3 48-inch anchor straps. You can daisy chain these together if you really need to go around a large tree, but typically this will go around anything you need to go around. We're going to put a carabiner in there and tie our rope onto that. So with every Claiminator rope and harness kit, you're going to get 3 of these anchor straps. You're also going to get 2 spikes, 2 anchor spikes. For those locations where there is nothing else to tie onto, you have to use a spike to anchor your ropes. When we're using those spikes, you're going to need a hammer. Claiminator rope and harness kits come with a 2-pound sledgehammer to easily get those spikes in and out of the ground. So let's talk about some of the good areas, some good things to anchor our ropes onto. Let's talk about fence. A good sturdy fence is a good anchor point. In this case, we're going to shoot our line over and sit our ladder up here and climb the roof from this location. So I need an anchor point over here. So this would be a good place to anchor my rope onto. I typically like to go around the anchor point a couple times. That way it eliminates the drag of it wanting to slide up and down. So good anchor point there. Okay, let's talk about spikes. If we get to a location where there's nothing to anchor onto, and we'll use our Claiminator spikes to do so. And the way you deploy these spikes is you want to run it at a 45-degree angle away from the house. So this would be the perfect angle to this location. The reason why we want to go at a 45-degree angle is because putting this spike in the ground at a 45-degree angle, the tip of the spike is going to be above the 16-inch mark, where a typical buried lines like electrical, plumbing, irrigation are below 16 inches. So we want to stay above those buried lines. So at a 45-degree angle, we want to drive our spike into the ground. And we want to go all the way into the ground. Just like that. Then this is where we'll tie one of our anchor straps onto. Our carabiner into that, and then our rope onto that. So some of the things not to tie onto would be small shrubs, yard furniture or ornaments or barbecue pits, things like that. Not a good thing to tie onto. If you were to take a spill, that's liable to not be able to hold you down. Plus, you want to, whatever you tie onto, you want to make sure it's nice and stable, it's secure, it's not going to go anywhere. if I were to tie onto this device here, then if I were to take a spill, that thing may roll and wind up hitting the house and causing some damage. So there's lots of things too that you can tie onto, but there's also some things you don't want to tie off onto. Gutters, loose fencing, small shrubs, things like that. I want to try to avoid those things. We're looking for solid, permanent posts, claymate or anchor spike, some fences, solid trees, big trees, good anchors, good anchor locations. When you're selecting an anchor location, you want to use the pitch of the slope to determine that premium location. Looking at the pitch of the roof or the angle of the roof in relation to the ground, what I want to try to do is I want to try to come straight down that angle of the roof and into the ground. I don't want to get it too close, because if I get it too close, then my rope wants to pinch off at the edge of the roof, which could be a gutter or the eave of the roof, which causes friction, could do damage to the gutter, it could do damage to the shingle. So I want to try to stay off of that eave line or that gutter, and come up just a little bit above that, and then come out to that perfect angle. It's going to keep my rope off of those gutters and that eave line. Okay, so now we're on the opposite side of the roof where we're going to install our second anchor, so we can tie our lines off. And as you can see, there's nothing to anchor off onto over here. There's no trees, there's nothing at all. So I'm going to use another Claminator spike over here to do so. Again, I want to take the angle of the roof and then come out to where it touches the ground, and that's about where I want to deploy my spike. It's going to be at a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to drive it all the way into the ground. Tie my anchor strap through that loop, hook my carabiner on here, and then this is where I'm going to attach my rope to. So now I'm ready to get my rope over the roof. I've got both my anchors set. I'm ready to get the rope over the roof, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use the power line launcher. That's for another episode of getting that heavy duty rope over the roof. All right, so now I've got my rope tied over to the other side. I've come back around over here where we initially launched our dummy over and launched our line over. Now I'm going to start pulling on the pull line and start pulling on the rope to get it over the roof. So as I'm pulling, I'm going to feel a couple of tight points where it gets nice and tight. But what that is that rope is right at the eave line or the gutter. And I want to recognize that, because if I sit here and pull on this and pull it, you know, I could damage my string, or I could pull my knot loose over on the other side. But I want to understand that initial pull is the rope is right at the eave line. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to back off about a foot, and then I'm going to give it a good pull. I can feel it hop over that eave line. So smooth sailing. The next little snug point that I'm going to feel is when the rope gets right up to the ridge. I'm going to feel a little snug pull on it. I'm going to slack up a little bit and pull it. Okay, so now you can see my rope. I've made it over. It's coming to me. I'm going to pull it down, get it here. So I'm just going to untie this simple couple half hitches, simple little figure 8 in there, unhook that, and now I'm ready to hook my rope up to my anchor point. So what I have here is I got a nice figure 8 and into my carabiner, make sure that carabiner is locked. So this is our first anchor point. Okay, so now I'm back over to the other side we've tied our anchor, our rope off to our anchor on one side. Now I'm ready to anchor over onto this side. And what I want to do now is I need to figure out how much of this rope am I going to need to be able to conduct as much of this roof scope as I possibly can. So in other words, I want to be able to get to this corner and that corner of this slope and the opposite slope. I want to be able to get from front to back of the roof with my rope. So I don't want this to be too tight, because then it won't allow me to go all the way over to the corners. So I'm going to pull a bunch of slack out. But if you notice, on a 60-meter rope, this little black mark, this is halfway, so 30 meters. So we're not even halfway over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a bunch of rope out. And again, this is just a guesstimation, an estimation. It's what we do, right? We estimate about how much slack I'm going to want to be able to go from one side to the other. So I'm going to pull out about an extra 15 yards of rope, and then I'm going to create a knot here and tie into my anchor. So all this is going to allow, all this slack is going to allow me to go from side to side, not only up and down, but again, side to side, to be able to scope the entire slope. So what I'm going to tie here is I'm going to tie a figure 8, one and only knot, just like that. Get all the slack out of it. And then that's going to go right into my carabiner and my anchor point. I'll screw that gate down and lock that up so I don't have to worry about this rope coming out. So now I'm fully tied off, fully anchored on both sides of the rope. Left side, right side. Again, I'm going to go up on this side. I'm going to climb the roof from this side. I'm going to set my ladder up, climb the roof from this side, scope this slope, make the transition over, scope the other slope, come back to the ridge, set up my hip walker, and then scope the front and back hips. All right, so anchor basics. I'm going to anchor on both sides so I can tie my rope off on both sides and be able to make that transition across the ridge, and to be able to do my hip walking on the hips. So that concludes this episode of Anchor Basics. Again, click the like button, subscribe to the Claiminator channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell, let me know you've been here, and we'll see you on the next one.